Hey guys, welcome back to the What About AI podcast. I'm Sean Boyce.
I'm James Perkins.
And today the topic we want to talk about is Microsoft's new addition to Copilot, which is called Cowork. Now that name may sound familiar. The reason why that sounds familiar is because another topic we've talked about on this show is Claude Cowork, which comes from Anthropic. And the fact that Microsoft is now using the same name is not an accident either, because Microsoft has partnered up with Anthropic to basically bring Cowork capabilities to their Copilot AI platform and system. How are we doing so far? Did I get all that right?
Yeah, it's a mouthful every time.
It is quite a bit. So the exciting part is that James and I both feel that this is a potential game changer for especially the knowledge workers out there that we produce content for, who want to learn more about how to effectively use AI in their day-to-day work and for automation and all kinds of cool stuff. So we want to tell you more about this, unpack this topic, talk more about what it means for you. The last thing I'll say before I turn it over to James and we kind of dive in a little bit deeper so that you can know more about what it is tell you basically when it happened. So I think we're recording on the 10th right now, March 10th. Yesterday was when they announced that Microsoft was going to be bringing Cowork to its Copilot platform. And right now it's kind of in research preview mode, so not necessarily everyone who has a Microsoft 365 subscription or access will have access to it. There are certain accounts that they're rolling that out to. I think they're referring that to as their Frontier program. So some of the larger organizations are probably going to start seeing this sooner in terms of having access to this version that's available in Microsoft. So you want to talk a little bit more about what this means for folks?
Yeah, well, I think first on the naming conventions, it's confusing. So I have like personal friends and family, and even some of our clients are like, well, which one's which? I can't keep track. Think of it more like cars, right? Like it's the make, the model, and the year. And in the case of Cowork, it's Anthropic Claude Cowork. And in case of Microsoft solution, it's Microsoft Copilot for Office. And now they've combined the two kind of for Microsoft Copilot Cowork. Hopefully that helps folks if you're trying to make sense of it all. In terms of feature functionality and why it matters, it's Microsoft Office is in almost every business in the world. I mean, you're either using Microsoft Office or Google Docs, Google's equivalent. And maybe some are using the open source platforms that are out there, but it has such a huge presence. And Anthropic as a company had been focusing for a long time, we've talked about this, on more enterprise clients, more business focused. So they were getting into big companies and trying to become the primary tool of use. The fastest way for Anthropic to get there was through Microsoft, and the fastest way for Microsoft to kind of piggyback on the success of Anthropic's solution was to combine the two, and they've done that. So if you're working in a business setting and your company already has Office products, this will become available to you in the next month or so, almost certainly. And there's a couple big things to think about there. One, Microsoft already applies to or leverages all the existing security policies that companies have. So you can't create documents that get sent publicly if they have a certain stamp on them, right, for internal use only or confidential. There's tons of rules and settings in place already in SharePoint environments. So if you work in a corporate environment, you probably have used SharePoint before or at least heard about it. All of these really high-level governance protocols are already there with Microsoft. So putting Claude and Cowork behind that to power all of the AI automations that you can do is a brilliant move. I think you're going to see tons of use cases here that you haven't yet. I know I've heard people complain about how poor Copilot was as a solution by itself. Microsoft just solved that. Now they have access to both OpenAI's backend and Anthropic, and they say they're going to choose whichever model's best, but 9 times out of 10, it's going to be Claude. So that's my take.
Fair, yeah, agreed. I think this is a game changer and a brilliant move, especially on Microsoft's part. And I think they've probably chosen the best partner for it as well, too, to kind of get through over some of those hurdles, which were a lot of the complaints about the existing tech out there. A lot of people were saying what James is referring to is Copilot kind of really just not being enough based on what it was previously capable of. So empowered with this from Anthropic, I think could potentially be a game changer for folks. We're going to talk more about that as well too. But Copilot Cowork is now going to have potentially a significantly more access to things, which are going to enable people like you to be able to do more with it. like access to the web and access to the rest of the Microsoft infrastructure,
Hmm.
anything available in your Office 365 suite, in your calendar, it can, change those things for you. It can, workshop emails, can handle emails, all that kind of stuff. So I would say this sounds like so far the most complete solution for an office worker at really any size company, especially the larger companies out there, which you can now start leveraging AI in a much more practical way and not limited use case, assuming that it remains open for most folks for the things that they want to use it for. And I think that's one of the most brilliant moves here. If you've taken the capabilities, which we've seen very impressive stuff in Anthropic across the board thus far, and you've married that with technology and software, which is essentially ubiquitous in the business environment today, which is Microsoft and its stack. So combining the two of those, I think, is going to open up a lot of interesting possibilities.
Yeah, let's give a few like practical use
Yeah.
cases. So if you're in a corporate environment and you want to build a slide deck, or you have a presentation that you were told you have to create, today, typically you would go to like a template you have for your corporate environment, for whatever group you're working with, and you start populating it with the standard narrative for any kind of presentation. Now you can drop the files that have the data. So maybe a few different spreadsheets that have critical data, a few Word docs you've worked on, or have like standard operating procedures and the template you normally use, and give Cowork plain Word instructions. You could say, take this template using the data I provided and the document as guidance, and build me a presentation with 10 slides that follow this narrative. And that's it. Press enter, sit back, and in 5-10 minutes, you'll have a presentation that you can go in and modify. It might not be perfect, but it'll be pretty close.
Should cut down, and I think that's what we've seen in some of the tools we've tested, upwards of 90% of the amount of time that goes into that. So it may not sound all that significant if you are only creating slide decks every now and then, but if that's a key part of the work that you do all day, every day, and we know plenty of folks that are doing that, we've been there ourselves at some point, that saves you a dramatic amount of time, and now you can move on doing all those other things you wanted to do, interestingly enough, like you both for yourself and for your team. Same thing with spreadsheets and Word documents and anything that you are creating business suite wise, which for most businesses is almost touching on all of the applications in the Microsoft suite, including your email and scheduling meetings. Like that's where a significant amount of time goes for knowledge workers. Now you're going to have something that theoretically should enable you to automate a significant portion of that if you learn how to use this tech the right way and then apply it as well too. So I think that's kind of where we'd probably go next is, why is this so important for folks and what should they be thinking about in terms of preparing themselves for the next steps as this tech rolls out further?
Yeah, well, I think this becomes the new norm. So the expectation will be if you're asked to build a slide deck, it won't take you 3 days. It'll take you 30 minutes. So you have to learn how to use the tool if you're not using it already. And I've had some feedback. Oh, well, I know how to create pivot tables. I'm probably faster than the AI. That may have been true 6 months ago. That is not true now. Even if you're an expert in Excel, and I was briefly, to my own regrets, you can just prompt AI with what you want it to do, and it will do it much more quickly, and in some cases more effectively. I would say start using it aggressively. The next, like what it means for you next, though, is if that becomes the new standard, the new baseline, then how are you going to be either at or above your peers in terms of your skill set? This is where learning how to prompt the AI properly, because plain language does work, but knowing some of the prompting tricks matters, and understanding the output and how to define the output that you want, because AI kind of has defaults it always goes to. If you ask it to build a web app, it's almost always React, right? If you ask it to build a document, it's going to be formatted very similarly. If you ask it to build a web page, the UI UX is almost always the same. Tons of purple. It's just, that's how it is. It's called AI slop. You have to know how to ask for exactly what you want to make sure it doesn't produce things from its default mode. And that's something that we talk about pretty often. We'll always share tips here. I think in terms of what's next, this is probably the biggest solution you're going to see in all of your corporate environments. At home, though, you're probably not using Microsoft Copilot Cowork, right?
Probably not.
So the next thing is to figure out which premium subscriptions matter for you and make the most impact to your home life. A lot of folks have OpenAI today. A lot of folks use Claude. Some use Grok. You have to learn what each tool can do for you. I think that's an important next step.
Yeah, well said. So for sure, I would recommend, on top of everything James said, see what you can do to find out if your company uses the Microsoft 365 stack, but basically like any Microsoft products. Chances are you may be getting this access soon or already have it.
Yep.
So I would reach out to the folks at your company to learn more about Copilot Cowork, so Microsoft's Copilot Cowork. See if that's coming, see if you have access to it. If you do, request it to make sure that you can start playing around with it and using it. And then for folks out there who may not have access to it yet, because I think so far it's in research preview, which means that not everyone's necessarily going to get access right away, it looks like folks that are part of their kind of frontier program will. For others, it should be coming soon. But if you don't have access to it yet, or that's something that is coming and that's what they're sharing with you, you can start doing two things, I think. Number one, like James was saying, from home or via your personal setup, you can actually get access to probably Claude Cowork, which is likely to kind of operate probably in a similar way. So if you want to start playing around with some tech that's likely to be similar to Copilot Cowork, see if you can gain access to Anthropic's version, and that will enable you to start experimenting with something before your company rolls out the Microsoft version. And then in addition to that, I would start thinking more about what you want to use it for. So think about what you do on a day-to-day basis and the things that you want to start experimenting with, either automating or leveraging AI for. Like James said, putting slide decks together, spreadsheets, working on your email, scheduling meetings, whatever. You can start thinking about creating kind of a list of those tasks where a lot of your time goes now and where you think you can get a lot of that time back by leveraging this once it is available.
I think we hit
Pretty
most
good
of the
for
nails on
today.
the head.
Yeah, there's plenty of stuff to work on there. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We appreciate it.
Thanks all.